The 3rd of April 1965, Thanh Hóa Province, North Vietnam. A massive strike force converges on a single bridge, the Dragon's Jaw. 500 sorties later, both spans stand. Then, in May, a laser dot winks on grey concrete and the bridge collapses in 97 seconds. The Pentagon counts tonnage. North Vietnam counts invisible threads. This is how a guidance chain no planner drew determined when Thanh Hóa fell. Every briefing room from Yankee Station in the Gulf of Tonkin to Udon Royal Thai Air Force Base in Thailand repeats the same doctrine. More sorties break hardened targets. Strike planners add aircraft, increase tonnage, cycle carrier air wings through combat tours. From 1965 to 1968, commanders double down on unguided iron bombs. Not one mission planner asks whether the bombs can see the bridge. The Invisible network has 3 nodes. First, a designator that paints the target with coded laser energy. Second, a seeker that rides the reflection to impact. Third, rules of engagement, ROE, that decide who fires and when. In 1965, U.S. aircraft carry Mark 84 2,000-pound unguided bombs with missed distances exceeding a football field. The Ham Rong Bridge measures just 56 feet wide. Mathematics favors concrete. A laser designator emits pulsed infrared energy. The seeker head in a GBU-10 Paveway eye bomb tracks that reflection with 15-foot accuracy, but the laser chain requires 3 conditions: stable platform, clear weather, and permission to illuminate inside North Vietnam's surface-to-air missile belt. From April 1965 through October 1968, rules of engagement prohibit strikes within restricted zones around Hanoi and Haiphong. Thanh Hóa sits outside those rings technically open, but fighter sweeps cross forbidden areas. Carrier air wing commanders launch alpha-scale strikes to suppress one bridge. North Vietnamese air defense integrates surface-to-air missiles, MiG interceptors, and dense anti-aircraft artillery. The defender reads every American move. The designator pod stays on the shelf at Eglin Air Force Base, Florida. By 1968, 500 missions crater approaches but leave both spans standing. Not firepower, but physics defeats the strike force. The 3rd of April 1965, Thanh Hóa. A massive strike force from USS Coral Sea and USS Hancock executes Rolling Thunder Mission 9 Alpha. Commander James Stockdale briefs multiple squadrons of A-4 Skyhawks and F-8 Crusaders for the bridge. Each Skyhawk carries 2 Mark 84 bombs. Planners calculate the weapons will saturate a stationary target. First wave hits at dawn. Smoke obscures the Ham Rong spans within seconds. Stockdale's post-strike battle damage assessment reports minor damage to roadway, spans intact. North Vietnam fires hundreds of anti-aircraft rounds. One A4 goes down near Thanh Hóa town. The next day, the 4th of April 1965, a large force of U.S. Air Force, F-105. Thunder Chiefs from Korat and Takli Royal Thai Air Force bases executes follow-up strikes. Colonel Robinson Risner leads the mission. Each F-105 carries multiple bombs. Total payload exceeds 100 tons. Risner reports hits on the southern span but no collapse. Several phone 105 seconds take battle damage from anti-aircraft fire. One diverts to Da Nang. By the following day, Pacific Air Force's analysts conclude the bridge's Soviet-designed reinforced concrete absorbs kinetic energy without catastrophic failure. The Mark 84's nose fuse detonates on impact. Penetration depth stays shallow. Ham Rong's thick deck laughs at surface detonations. Rules of engagement forbid mining the Song Ma River or striking the rail yard where reconstruction crews stage. Not tonnage, but targeting physics writes the outcome. October 1966, Yankee Station. Carrier Air Wing aboard USS Intrepid receives orders for maximum effort bridge strikes. Strike Lead Lieutenant Commander Michael Esterchin plans a large alpha strike with suppression, flak suppression, and combat air patrol elements. Estochin's A4 Skyhawks carry cluster bomb units to neutralize anti-aircraft sites before the main force drops conventional bombs. The strike launches in afternoon. MiG interceptors from Noi Airfield engage the combat air patrol northeast of Thanh Hóa. Multiple surface-to-air missile launches from a site near Phu Li force the strike package to jink at altitude. Bombing accuracy collapses. Post-strike reconnaissance shows dozens of craters near the bridge. 0 hits on the spans. Estochin takes anti-aircraft fire through his starboard wing but recovers aboard Intrepid. Between April 1965 and December 1967, U.S. forces lose 11 aircraft over Thanh Hóa, some to surface-to-air missiles, others to anti-aircraft artillery and MiG interceptors. Naval Air Systems Command drafts a requirement for a television-guided glide bomb. The AGM-62 Walleye enters development at China Lake, California. Walleye's contrast lock seeker promises autonomous terminal guidance, but the system needs high-contrast aim points. The grey concrete Ham Rong Bridge blends with the Songma River in monsoon overcast. April 1967. A V. A 22. Amperes 7. Corsair 2 from USS Bonhomme Richard releases the first Walleye at Thanh Hóa. The seeker locks on a barge far downstream. The weapon impacts the riverbank. By June 1967, 3 Walleye attempts produce 0 bridge hits. Not guidance alone, but seeker discrimination defeats the early smart bomb. January 1968, Eglin Air Force Base, Florida. Texas Instruments delivers the first Paveway I laser-guided bomb kits to the USAF Armament Development and Test Center. A GBU-10 kit adds a computer control group and a wing assembly to a standard Mark 84 bomb. The seeker tracks a laser spot pulsed at precise intervals. The canards correct trajectory multiple times per second. Test drops at Eglin achieve 15-foot accuracy from high altitude. But the laser designator, the Pave Knife pod, weighs hundreds of pounds and requires a dedicated aircraft to illuminate while strikers attack. In March 1968, President Lyndon Johnson halts. Rolling Thunder strikes north of the 20th parallel. Thanh Hóa enters a bombing pause. The GBU-10 sits in storage at Ubon Royal Thai Air Force Base, Thailand, waiting for war to resume. October 1968. Johnson ends all strikes against North Vietnam. The pause extends 40 months. Paveway training continues at Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada, and George Air Force Base, California, but no combat employment occurs. Pacific Air Force's weapons officers know the math. A small formation with precision bombs has higher bridge kill probability than a massive alpha strike with conventional iron. But the invisible node political permission stays dark. North Vietnam rebuilds the bridge's damaged southern approach and adds multiple surface-to-air missile battalions around Thanh Hóa. By 1971, the Ham Rong Defense Network integrates numerous anti-aircraft batteries and early warning radars linked to Hanoi. Not technology, but authorization determines when the designator pod flies. April 1972, Yankee Station and Udon Royal Thai Air Force Base. Operation Linebacker I resumes strikes above the 20th parallel after North Vietnam's Easter offensive crosses the demilitarized zone. The new rules of engagement permit attacks within previously restricted zones around Hanoi and Haiphong. Thanh Hóa becomes a priority target. 8th Tactical Fighter Wing at Ubon loads GBU-10 Paveway Y bombs on F-4 Phantom IIs. Each aircraft carries 2 2,000-pound laser-guided bombs. The strike pairs a designator carrying the Pave Knife pod with strikers in formation. The 10th of May 1972. A 4-ship from the wing launches for Thanh Hóa. Weather is clear, winds light. Major George Larson flies the designator F-4 at altitude. Wingmen carry the GBU-10 seconds. Larson's Pave Knife operator sits in the rear cockpit. The Weapons Systems Officer, WSO, acquires the southern span at distance. The crosshair locks the laser. First striker releases at altitude, time of fall, calculated. The GBU-10 seeker captures the laser reflection. WSO's thumb trembles off the trigger guard as the canards bite. Larson holds the laser steady. The tone lock confirms continuous illumination. A voice over the radio. Hold, lays. Hold. Impact. Impact. Southern span. Meters east of center pylon. Detonation severs pre-stressed concrete beams. The span sags but does not collapse. Second striker releases. Impact meters west of the first hit. Third and fourth GBU 10 seconds walk the span. The southern structure drops into the Songma River at mid-morning. Total time on target, under 2 minutes. Not endurance, but precision decides the bridge's fate. The 13th of May 1972, USS Coral Sea, Yankee Station. Navy planners target the northern span with Walleye 2, extended-range glide bombs. Walleye 2 carries a 1,000-pound warhead and a contrast lock seeker updated with edge detection algorithms. 4 A-7 Corsair 2s from VA-94 launch at dawn. Weather forecast shows scattered clouds at mid-altitude. Lieutenant Commander Alan Crabo selects bridge aiming point. The seeker locks on the north span's shadow against the river. Release altitude, high. Release range, multiple nautical miles. Walleye's glide ratio extends range beyond surface-to-air missile launch envelopes. Crebo's section stays outside the SAM trap. First weapon impacts the north span's eastern pylon. Penetration reaches depth before detonation. Second, Walleye strikes meters west. Third weapon hits the western pylon. The fourth A-7's Walleye loses lock when smoke obscures the bridge. The pilot pickles the weapon at a rail siding north of target. Reconnaissance hours later shows the north span collapsed into the Songma River. The rail siding burns from the fourth Walleye. Total aircraft losses, 0. Between May 10 and the 13th of May 1972, 12 laser-guided bombs and television-guided bombs destroy both ham-rong spans. From April 1965 through October 1968, 500 conventional sorties fail to drop either span. The invisible network designators, seekers, and permissive ROE delivers what mass bombing cannot. Not courage, but guidance physics wins the bridge. The 23rd of May 1972, Hanoi, North Vietnam. Senior Colonel Nguyen Van Heo, North Vietnamese Air Force Air Defense Coordinator, briefs the Politburo on the May strikes. Heo's report documents 3 facts. U.S. aircraft now attack from beyond visual surface to air missile range, weapons track to impact without radio command, and losses per sortie drop dramatically. The SA-2 system depends on fire control radar predicting straight-line trajectory. Laser-guided bombs maneuver in terminal phase. Heo recommends relocating anti-aircraft batteries to interdict designator orbits. But USAF Wild Weasel F-4 crews carrying anti-radiation missiles suppress any radar that emits. By June 1972, North Vietnam rebuilds a pontoon bridge downstream. It carries a fraction of Ham Rong's capacity. Linebacker first strikes continue through October. U.S. forces employ laser-guided bombs against dozens of strategic targets, including the Paul Duma Bridge in Hanoi. Post-war analysis shows that laser-guided bomb-equipped strikes achieve bridge cuts with minimal sorties versus many times more conventional sorties. The tonnage ratio inverts. 1,972 raids drop a fraction of the explosives and achieve multiple times the target destruction. The invisible network does not amplify firepower. It subtracts waste. Rules of engagement changes matter as much as seeker technology. Linebacker I permits strikes that Rolling Thunder forbids. A Pacific Air Force's weapons officer tells investigators that precision tools existed years earlier, but not the authority to employ them. Thun Hoa proves that designator seeker ROE forms a kill chain. Break one link and the bridge stands. Not politics alone, but the fusion of technology and authorization cuts the dragon's jaw. While conventional strikes piled tonnage, precision guidance made it irrelevant. The Hamrong Bridge falls not when ordnance tonnage reaches critical mass, but when three invisible systems align. Every previous strike breaks on one missing link. 1972 closes the loop. The invisible network's first node is the designator, a laser that paints the target with coded pulses invisible to human eyes. Pave Knife pods mount centerline on an F-4 Phantom. The operator sits in the rear cockpit with a stabilized optical sight. Larson's weapons systems officer acquires the Thanh Hóa bridge at distance, zooms to magnification, and centers crosshairs on the span. The carbon dioxide laser designator emits in the long-wave infrared. Atmospheric attenuation stays minimal in clear weather. Pulse rate codes prevent seeker confusion if multiple designators operate nearby. A laser dot winks on the bridge's concrete. The seeker in the falling GBU-10 sees a reflection exponentially brighter than sunlight. The designator aircraft orbits in a racetrack pattern, keeping the target illuminated for precise seconds while the bomb falls. One cloud, one maneuver, one distraction breaks the chain. The bomb goes ballistic. The second node is the seeker, a computer control group bolted to the nose of a Mark 84 bomb. 4 cruciform canards on the guidance section deflect to maximum angles. Corrections occur multiple times per second. The seeker's quadrant detector measures laser energy in 4 segments. If energy shifts left, canards steer left. At impact, the GBU-10 carries 2,000 pounds of tritonal explosive at terminal velocity. The shaped charge penetrates deep into reinforced concrete before detonation. Walleye's television seeker uses contrast detection. The weapon locks on edges where light and shadow meet, but contrast requires clear weather and a target that stands out against its background. The third node is rules of engagement, the political filter that decides whether the other 2 nodes activate. From April 1965 through October 1968, ROE forbids mining rivers, striking rail yards within populated areas, or lingering over Thanh Hóa for designator orbits. Linebacker 3 in April 1972 removes those restrictions. Strike packages orbit for the time needed to guide each bomb. The Pacific Air Force's weapons officer's observation becomes doctrine. Precision is worthless without permission to employ it. Between May 10 and the 13th of May 1972, the 3 nodes synchronize. Pave Knife designators orbit freely. GBU-10 seekers ride the reflections. Rules of engagement permit extended time over target. 12 bombs destroy what 500 missions could not touch. The Dragon's jaw falls in under 2 minutes because 3 invisible systems finally work in concert. Not one element, but the combination forms the kill chain. The invisible network does not add capability, it multiplies it. By October 1972, Linebacker 1 ends. North Vietnam accepts negotiations after dozens of key bridges and rail yards fall to precision strikes. The Ham Rong Bridge stays collapsed until 1975, when North Vietnam rebuilds the spans using Soviet engineers. Post-war analysis by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency calculates that laser-guided bomb strikes cut operational costs dramatically per target destroyed. 1/20th the tonnage for the same effect. Paveway technology migrates to smaller 500-pound variants and heavier 2,000-pound penetrators by 1976. By Desert Storm, in 1991, U.S. forces employ thousands of laser-guided bombs with high hit rates. The invisible network pioneered at Thanh Hóa becomes standard doctrine. Every precision strike requires a designator, a seeker, and rules of engagement that permit employment. Nguyen Van Hio's post-war memoir acknowledges North Vietnam could defend against tonnage, but not against weapons that steered. The Dragon's jaw survives 500 conventional sorties, not because American pilots lack courage, but because physics and politics both prohibit success. May 1972 proves that the invisible chain designator seeker authorization decides outcomes. The bridge becomes a case study at Air Command and Staff College. Technology requires permission to succeed. Thanh Hóa teaches that invisible networks amplify combat power only when all nodes function. Not firepower, but integration writes the final after-action report. While conventional strikes counted sorties, precision guidance counted nodes. 500 missions teach one lesson: bombs that see matter more than bombs that fall. The invisible network designator Seeker, ROE, multiplies lethality only when politics aligns with physics. Precision beats persistence when politics loosens the leash.